Right. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Dr. Asmia, for the kind introduction about myself. We have been working together for almost a year now. Although I heard a lot of things about the DAIT, this is the first time I'm meeting personally every one of you. So I hope, and I'm also excited to contribute in software engineering module, which I'm sharing with Yasara. So the first day, actually, I will give you a little bit about my background, and then we'll switch to the subject content. And also, I would like to share like what I'm planning to, cover in the module under the software engineering. So hopefully you will get overall idea what we plan for this particular subject. And then as initially, I will go back to very beginning, revisiting some of the things you have already learned. And then I'll have a recorded session where I will start with discussing the implementation part. I hope you have covered the first three topics and I'm covering the last three topics. Right. As Dr. Asmia very correctly mentioned, I'm Dr. Sampath Kalla and coming from Peradeniya University. I work as a senior lecturer there. Then I got the opportunity to work at SLTC as the Dean of Faculty of IT. And so in case if you're interested to learn a bit about my background, so I have listed my presence in the web. So you can have a look at what I have been doing all these years. Just to give you like my background. So I actually got my bachelor's from University of Peradeniya Faculty of Engineering in computer engineering. And then I did both licentiate and my doctorate at computer and system sciences in Stockholm University, so in Europe. So and basically my background is in machine learning. So my doctorate, basically I worked on machine learning and developing algorithm there. Right, and then also like in case if you want to contact me, so I have also given you my email. You are free to email me, as well as in case if you want to contact me, so I'm giving you my WhatsApp number as well. Anything related to module as well as computing in general. If you have any queries, you are free to contact me through the WhatsApp. Right. I think that's enough about myself. In case if you need some translation, just let me know in the chat. In case if you need it, like you are free to talk in any language. Since our primary medium in English, I always try to use English language, but whenever you need translation, unfortunately in Sinhala, just let me know in the chat. Right. So primary reference I use is Somerville's software engineering book, where that is what Yasara also used in the first few sessions, right? So having said that, let me discuss what my plan for the rest of the sessions in software engineering. As Dr. Asmia correctly mentioned, like a building a house, software is also a very complex system. So when you look at developing a computer system, it's not an easy task. It's a teamwork, and people spend years as well as spend on billions of rupees building on systems. So therefore, it's very important to know how the software is made, and you should be familiar with the process as well. So if I going to your syllabus, just to look at what we have been doing in this module. just to refresh yourself from the beginning. So in the syllabus, you can see we are going to, teach as well as discuss, as well as learn the skills in developing a software system. So we want to give you the basis of understanding how to develop a software product. So a couple of things we are going to discuss. When you say developing a software, we have various different types of software available, right? For example, I hope you are familiar with the web development, web-based systems, mobile systems, as well as desktop software. So there are different types of software available. At the same time, there are different software systems are also available. So first you should have an basic understanding about what kind of a software is available. So that's what we discussed in the beginning. Then once you do that, we are going to look at the software engineering principles, starting from design. Like building a house, we need to have a plan. So I hope, let's say you want to build a house, so which means you have to have some idea about what you want to have in the house, right? So usually we prefer to have an architect who will design, provide you a proper design. Similar to that, in software also, we will have to have a software architect who will design the software system. So the first few topics, if you look at what we have covered so far, Yasara took the first three topics. First, I think you understood what software, as well as how the software is used, what is the process, and what are the ways of building software. And then in the second topic, you might discuss the requirements. So let's say you want to build a software for a library, for a simple example. So when you ask to build a software for a library, first you need to understand what is happening in the library. If you do not understand, then you can't build, right? So one way is you can just have a look at what is happening there. So that is, you gather the requirements. So observation, obviously one way, you just go and observe what is happening. So you might see that, okay, people come in, they search for books, they buy books, buy in the sense they loan books and they return books. Of course, if you delay the return, you will have to make fines. So all sort of things you can notice. Then you can talk to people, right? So you can talk to users, you can talk to library staff, you can talk to librarian to get necessary details to build the software for a library. So there are many techniques you can use. For example, you can interview them, right? For example, librarian and the library staff, you can interview, get a more detailed information, what is required. But of course, there are too many users, so you can't interview each and everyone. Then you can provide some questionnaires, right? You can provide questionnaires, what services maybe they require in a library information system. So there are various methods that you can actually gather requirements. And then you can model them. Of course, I'm also going to talk a little bit of modeling because I need some modeling for implementation as well. So modeling in the sense that you use different visual modeling techniques like class diagram, UML diagrams, as well as I hope you have learned about the use case diagrams, right? So those things we could use to get an understanding about how the system will look like in the beginning. So simply that will be the main part, or that is one of the very important part. If you make mistake here, that will affect your whole implementation process. In the third one, we will talk about the design. when we say design, there are two things we can talk about. One, about the software. So that means there'll be a design process, concepts, and then you have architectural design. So different architectures we can use. For example, in web-based system, we can talk about three schema architecture. For example, you can have front end and the back end, then we can have application in the middle, right? So likewise, there could be like various ways where you can actually design your system, right? So those are the first three topics, right? Now, let me explain a bit about my part. So I'm going to start with software implementation. Now, up to this point, I hope that you have understood the whole software design process. And you also, I assume that you have a good understanding about uh, the requirements gathered. So maybe all the functional requirements, that means the features of your software, and non-functional requirements. Okay, let me give an example. We talk about the library system, isn't it? So when we say library system, the functional requirements could be things like, okay, in a library, we have to maintain user information. So there should be, some place where we should be able to enter users information, book information. Then users should be able to load books. Then users should be able to return the books. If it is get delayed, as I told you earlier, there should be a way to calculate the fine. So those are functional requirements. Then there are non-functional requirements. For example, okay, how many users we will allow, or how many users we should serve in the software. Okay, could be 10 users, 50 users. If you think about a website like Amazon, could handle like millions of users, right? So likewise, those are like performance, right? They are not functional, but non-functional requirement. Things like, okay, you have to have a very secure system for your payments. For example, if you build a system which uses, money, like payments, handling payments, we have to done with care. So security is one of the most important aspects. So that could be a non-functional requirements. Okay, so assuming that you have gathered all the information, you have made all the designs, I'm going to take from that point onwards. Then I'm going to talk about the implementation. That means we need now implement the system. So I hope now you have learned several programming languages, isn't it? So what are the programming languages you have learned? Yes, students. What are the programming languages you have learned in your first 2 semesters?
Python,
Yeah, you have learned Python.
Java,
Okay, you have also covered Java good. What else? Any web programming languages? Have you learned HTML?
yeah,
Yes, okay. That is what we call static, right? Any dynamic programming languages? Any?
JavaScript and PHP.
Okay. So you have done Python, HTML. Okay, I have seen CSS. Good. Have you learned PHP, for example?
yes, sir.
Okay. So that means you are comfortable with multiple programming languages, isn't it? Now, when you ask to develop the system, remember I told you about the library. So what programming language do you think is the best? Let's say I have given you a project to design a software for a library management system, right? from the knowledge you have gathered so far, can you tell me which programming language is the best?
Java.
Okay. Any other answers? Okay, Mihir said it's Python. Okay, good. What else? I got one answer as Java, one as Python. Any other answers? Okay, Kaluaji said C#. Any other? Okay, good. Let me explain like this. Okay, this is the tricky part. Now, once you have decided your requirements, the next thing is when you are going to implement, you have to decide what technologies I need to use, like technology stack, sometimes we use to say. You can use any programming language, right? Some can develop the library information system using Java. No issue. It's possible. Some you can use Python. Some you can use C#. Some you can use PHP, for example. But remember, it depends on your requirement, right? So that's what we are going to gather in the beginning. So depending on the customer need, depending on the budget you have, how much money you are going to spend, depending on whether you want to build a web-based software system, whether you need to develop mobile software system, whether you want to develop desktop software system, you have to select your programming language, right? So having said that, yes, you can use any programming language, but remember, it depends on what you need to develop. So sometimes, let's say, if you're only comfortable with Python, so I have seen there was one student said, okay, I'm comfortable with Python. Then of course you need to develop with Python, right? We don't have a choice. So it's sometimes true with the organization as well. Some organizations, they have preferred technologies. Why? Because if you have a software, to maintain the software, which I'm going to discuss at the last, now once, fourth session, I'm going to talk about the implementation. Fifth one, I'm going to talk about the maintenance. So after, when you think about maintaining a system, that means you have a system which you want to run for, let's say, 10, 20 years, you have to have some expertise. So let's assume that if organization has already, if they are familiar with Java or Python, they might prefer to build a system using those programming languages, right? So there's no one single answer for the question I asked, which programming language? It depends on various different, criteria or requirements. So which I'm going to discuss in a separate session. Hopefully, I will, have a recorded session on that part. So I hope you got some idea about what are the things we are going to discuss. Right. So in my part, under the software implementation, I'm going to talk about different coding techniques. Now, for example, if you have learned Python and Java, you might have used different techniques. So we are going to discuss what techniques to be used when you're building a software. How should you code, right? For example, we know that when you are creating variables, you have to use some meaningful names, right? So those things we are going to discuss. Having a lot of comments is very important. So there are some standard and guidelines we need to discuss. So those are the ideas that I'm going to discuss in this section. Then documentation, right? So So have you learned documentation in Python and Java? You have learned both Python and Java, right? So let's say Python. I hope you have learned Python. So let's say you want to know about a particular function. That means if you want to know, let's say, a particular command, like say print statement. How do you find more information about the print statement? Okay, let me take Python screen. Okay, let me share my screen. I hope everybody's familiar with this, right? So let's say I want to get more information about. Yes, Mihiro said, okay, you can use a standard live section. Can you tell me exactly how you do this? So right now I'm here. I want to know more about print function. Yes. Okay, let me say, okay, there's a function called len function. For example, let me say len, and let me say hello. What will happen here? Yes, if I say, okay, len hello, what will happen? What is the outcome? It says 5, right? What is happening with len then? How should I get more information about len? Okay, I just want to know like what you know about this. There's a function which we can use in Python to get help. Yes. Okay, so I can type help and then I can type len, right? Okay, so Mihir said that. So the easiest way to get the latest, help according to what Python version you have installed is you can just say help len. And this is what we call the built-in one, right? So it says len and it says return the number of items in a container. What it means, this is a string and the number of items means how many characters, right? So it says 5 characters. Similar to that, the answer for my previous question is the easiest way to do is we can say help print, which will give us, okay, this information, right? So it'll tell us how to use print. For example, according to this one, it says, okay, you can use value, comma, 3 dots, which indicates that you can have multiple values. So I can say, for example, print hello world. And you can have a number as well, multiple values. So I knew this because by referring the print statement, it says that you can use multiple values. And for example, if you look at this part, it says this is called separation. Usually values are separated by the space. You can see here the space. So if I take the same, if I say separation, let me put a comma, right? Now we can say the three items separate using a comma. So if I put a star instead of comma, it will show us like this. So all this information I got from the help, right? You got the point? Okay. Now these are built-in functions, right? So what about if you create your own function? Okay, can you tell me a function to add two numbers? How can I use a code? Let's say I want to create a function which add two numbers like this. Okay. So right now we don't have a function. If I enter, Python will complain and say that, okay, there's no function called add. So from your knowledge in Python programming, can you tell me how to create a function called add? Okay, you can use def, good. Okay, we can say def. And what is the next step? Yes, we can say add. Next. Yes, come on. I need your help. You can make mistakes. It's perfectly all right. We are here to make mistakes and learn. So don't worry making mistakes, but I need a response from you. Like how many of you are comfortable with that? Okay, I'm getting some answers. Right, okay. So we have to use some variable names, isn't it? So let me say number 1, comma number 2. These are called parameters. And then we will say, okay, return, let's say number 1 plus number 2. Yes, agree? Okay, good. I got some answers. Good. This is what I want to get from you. Okay, this is good. Now I can comfortably say, you can see now, Python recognize the user-defined function, and it asks me to enter number 1. I will put 2, and then I'll put 3. Okay, now I'm getting 5. Now think about what might happen. Can you guess? If I type help, add, what will happen? Do you think we'll get a help without typing? Can you tell me? What do you think? If I type help and add, do you think we'll get any help? Yes. Of course, you can type it and say, we can say help, add. Okay, it gives us something, but it's not very helpful like in previous case, right? So we will learn, I will have a separate session on this. How could we improve the help, right? For example, in Python, we have something called docstring. Have you learned docstrings? Have you heard the word docstring and doctest? Okay, docstring you have heard. Okay, good. What about doctest? Okay, let me show you. Like I told you, like today is just to get an understanding about your background and just to give me some ideas like what we are going to discuss in my sessions, right? Okay. So for example, to give you answer this, I can redefine add we can say number 1, 2, right? And then we can have, you know, strings, double quotes will indicate that the start of doc strings. So we can say, okay, function is add, and then we can say parameter 1 is number 1, then parameter 2 is number 2, right? And the output is the addition of the two numbers. And then you can have some output. For example, I can say 2,3, you will get 5, right? So likewise, we can provide information, and then we can say return number 1 plus number 2. Right, now if you say help add, you can see now it is improved our help, right? And the same thing can be used to test our functions, which I will discuss. So I hope you got some idea about what are the things we are going to discuss. So let me go back to the syllabus. So I'll be discussing about software implementations, the documentation guidelines, how you develop documentation, and then particularly I'm going to discuss how do you use different data types, defining your own data types, then the concept like data abstraction, exception handling, as well as how do you handle concurrency, right? Then the second topic is software testing. I told you about even in Python, we have something called doc test, which means while you are building a software, you need to test whether your software is providing you the expected output. Therefore, we talk about software testing. We discuss different types of testing. Then we can discuss about unit testing, which means you can look at like individually item at a time. For example, we can test each and every function we develop. Then we can discuss when you combine multiple functions, like let's say we define two functions, add, subtract. We can see what might happen if you apply add, then subtract, right? So we will discuss those ideas, the difference of software testing. The second part of this is called maintenance. That means after we select the programming language, properly implement your system, and once you implement, you test the system, and when users are happy with your software outcome, then you can actually deploy the system, we say. Now, once you deploy, we have to talk about the maintenance, right? Software maintenance means once you deploy the system, there might be errors even after you deploy, which means you gave the system software back to user. Let's say you have given software to the library, but then there could be some errors, so which you need to attain, correct, make changes. Then sometimes you need new features. Librarian might ask you to implement new features for the system. Again, comes under maintenance. Then there could be changes in the operating system. For example, now we have Windows 11, earlier we have Windows 10. So whenever the operating system changes, sometimes we might have to change a bit on our software as well, right? And then also, like, sometimes you have to rebuild old system. In the software maintenance, one of the tasks is when the system get old, maybe you have to use new technology, which means you have to again go back and re-implement, we call re-engineering, right? That means you have to, go back and understanding how the old system implemented, and then you build the software using new technology, which we call re-engineering. So those are the topics I'm planning to discuss under maintenance. Then, so those two topics mainly I'm going to discuss with you in coming sessions. And finally, you are supposed to build your own software product using the technologies you have learned so far. So I hope right now you have chosen the topics, right? Can you share like some of the topics you have selected for your previous assignments for the course? Mihir, what is the topic or what is the software system that you have selected in the assignment? I heard that there's an assignment on, identifying the features of the system, functional and non-functional requirements. Okay. So, okay, health domain, web development. Okay, good. Yeah. So you can choose a topic, and also you can choose whether you want to implement it as web-based system or a mobile-based, doesn't matter. But you have to follow a methodical way of developing the software, right? That is what we need. So for example, once you identify the features, then I want you to have design for example, database. Have you learned, for example, ER diagrams? Okay, so you are familiar with ER. So ER is you model it, right? Then after you develop the ER, do you also learn how to convert into tables? For example, let me say I'm going to give you a ER diagram, and then using the ER diagram, let's say you are going to convert into relations, we call it. Of course, you are going to create tables finally using SQL, right? Okay, so you are familiar. Okay, good. So these are the things that we need. So for example, in your software, you have to have an, some way of a model of your database. So of course, if you have learned ER, you can have a ER diagram, which represent your database design. And then you can create your database using any database management system you have used. You can use any database, MySQL, Oracle, SQLite. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what software system you are going to build. Okay. So I hope you got the overall picture, what I'm going to cover in the coming session. Right. Any questions? Let me give you a brief outline from Sinhala as well. පොතේ මං අපේ ටොපික්ස් 6ක් තියෙනවා මේකේ. පළවෙනි ටොපික්ස් තුනේදී අපි කතා කරන්නේ එක එක software system architectures ගැන. ඊට පස්සේ software එකක් build කරද්දී අපේ පළවෙනි කාරණේ තමයි අවශ්‍යතා ටික එකතු කරගන්න එක. අපි කියනවා requirement analysis කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ තුන්වෙනි එකේදී අපි ඉගෙන ගන්නවා software design techniques. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට මොන users ලද system එකේ ඉන්නේ කියන එක අපිට අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ functions එක්ක use case diagram වලින්. use case diagram ඔයගොල්ලෝ යන්ත නේද පුතේ? Yes. And then after you develop all the requirements, අපි හදාගත්ත මේ designs වලින් පස්සේ implementation එක ගැන තමයි කතා කරන්නේ. මම මෙතනදී කිව්වා ඕනෑම language එකක් use කරන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ඒ අපේ අවශ්‍යතාවය එහෙම නැත්නම් අපේ client ගේ අවශ්‍යතාවය අනුව තමයි ඒක decide වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. right? එහෙම නැත්නම් අපේ software type එක උදාහරණයක් විදිහට web based system නම් ඒ සඳහා පාවිච්චි කරන software programming languages තියෙනවා. right? ඔයගොල්ලන්ට HTML static content වලට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. PHP Java වගේ ඒවා අපිට පුළුවන් dynamic content වලට අන්න ඒ වගේ. මගේ කොටසදී මම කතා කරන්න යන්නේ අපි මේ වගේ decisions ගන්න කොහොමද මොනවද තියෙන techniques කියන එකයි. එතකොට මගේ topic එක හතරවෙනි topic එකේදී coding techniques ගැන මම ඉස්සෙල්ලාම කතා කරනවා. comments අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනේ, spacing තියන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වගේ අපේ එක techniques තියෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ document කරන්න ඕනේ. මම help ගැන ඔයගොල්ලන්ට පෙන්නනවා. එතකොට help එක අපි design කරන්න ඕනේ. help කියන්නේ මේ documentation කියවම අපි කතා කරනවා technical documentation කියලා. developers ලට documentation අපි හදන්න ඕනේ. users ලට අපි documentation එක හදන්න ඕනේ. software එක use කරන එක ගැන අනිත් වගේ අපි documentation ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ programming language features ගැන කතා කරනවා. අපි එක ideas කතා කරනවා මේ වලදී කොහොමද අපි ඒක handle කරන්නේ කියලා. ඒක තමයි මගේ first topic එක. second topic එකේදී අපි කතා කරන පුතේ testing සහ maintaining කියන එක. testing කියලා කියන්නේ software එක ලිව්වට පස්සේ අපි දන්නවා bugs තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපේ output එක වැරදි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට අපි කොහොමද ඒවා capture කරන්නේ? ඒ සඳහා එක techniques තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට අපි software system එක implement කරාට පස්සේ කොච්චර users ප්‍රමාණයක් ඇසරේ මේක access කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? අපි unit testing කියලා කතා කරන එක functions වෙනම ඊළඟට functions කීපයක් එකට එකතු වුණාම කොහොමද වෙන්නේ? මුළු system එකම අපි test කරන්නේ කොහොමද? මෙන්න මේ වගේ ideas ගැන අපි අතරම software testing වලදී කතා කරමු. ඊළඟ maintenance කියන එකේදී software එකක් අපි හදලා ඉවරලා බාර දුන්නට පස්සේ එන issues ගැන කතා කරමු. සමහරට අපේ තිබ්බ අඩුපාඩු තිබුණොත් ඒවා correct කරන විදිහ, අලුත් requirement එකක් ආවොත් අපි කොහොමද implement කරන්නේ? එහෙම නැත්නම් පරණ software system එකක් තිබුණොත් ඒක කොහොමද අපි අලුත් technology එකක් use කරලා අලුත් system එකකට පරිවර්තනය කරන්නේ? මෙන්න මේ දේවල් තමයි අපි maintenance යටතේ කතා කරන්නේ. එතන project එකකුත් පුතාලට තියෙනවා. දැන්ටමත් ඔයගොල්ලෝ මුල් පියවරවල් ටික කියලා තියෙන්නේ. 6 වෙනි topic එක ඇත්තටම මම උගන්වනවා නෙමෙයි. නමුත් ඔයගොල්ලෝ තෝරාගත්ත topics වලට අදාළව මේ ඉගෙන ගන්න techniques පාවිච්චි කරනවා model කරන් fully functional software එකක් හදන්න මේකේ කාලෙ මදි. නමුත් main functionalities ටික ඔයගොල්ලන්ට implement කරන්න පුළුවන් අපි අර කතා කරපු හැම කරුණක්ම ඇතුළත් වෙන විදිහට. ඒක තමයි පොතේ මේ අවසාන topics තුනේදී මම cover කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙලා ඉන්නේ. right හොඳයි පුතේ එහෙනම් ඔන්න ඔය ටික තමයි මට අද කතා කරන්න උවමනාව තිබ්බේ. මම අපි තාමත් topics මොනවද කතා කරේ නෑ. අපේ first discussion එක මට උවමනා වුණා මොනවද අපි කතා කරන්නේ කියන එක සහ කොහොමද අපේ ඊටු ටික අපි handle කරන්න කියන එක. මගේ contact details මම පුතාලට මුලින් දීලා තියෙනවා. මොන හරිම උවමනාවක් තිබුණොත් ඒ contact හරහා email එක එහෙම නැත්නම් මගේ WhatsApp හරහා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මාත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. පුතාලගේ මොන හරි ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් අපිට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට පුළුවන් අද දවසට නතර කරන්න අපේ discussion එක. Okay, guys, then if you don't have any questions, let me have the first session. I'll record and put you. And thank you everyone for joining today. I was expecting about like 1,000 participants. At least I witnessed about 10% of the student population, I guess. But I'm happy with those who have joined and interact with me. But remember, we have online sessions, but remember, take the maximum use of out of us. Only way is, always let us know what you need from our end. Right. I hope you understood what topics we are going to cover. With that said, let's meet next week. I will post a video and please go through the video and come up with the questions. So I will have a small quiz next week just to check your knowledge on the topics that I will cover in the online session. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. And nice to meeting you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Very
sir. Good
clear
night.
teaching, sir.